Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Aldas, and in today's video, I'm going to be asking the question, is the dream over for Sebastian Vettel at Ferrari? Now, during the 2019 Italian Grand Prix, where Sebastian Vettel not only had the fastest car on the field, but was also at the team's home race, he really needed a strong result, but it was yet another disaster of a weekend for Seb, as he made another mistake and had to watch his teammate in only his first season for Ferrari take their second win of the season at the team's home track. Now, it was a very difficult race for Seb, finishing in the end in 13th place outside of the points on their home track. Yeah, it was yet another just forgetful weekend for Sebastian that he really does not want to happen again, but it was categorized by another mistake that we've seen just far too often. So like I said, in this video, I'm going to answer the question, is the dream over for Sebastian Vettel at Ferrari? And also, I'm going to take a look at some of the big incidents that he has been involved with over the past few years, because this has not been a recent occurrence just over the past year. This has been going on for a while now, and in the end, I'm also going to talk about some of the things that he might be able to do to sort his problems and maybe get his mojo back and go back to the Sebastian Vettel that we know, the four-time world champion that is capable of challenging Lewis Hamilton and perhaps even being a Ferrari world champion in the future. Now, don't forget, guys, if you do enjoy the content on my channel and want to see more, don't forget to drop a like, smash that subscribe button, and check out my social medias. Instagram and Twitter will be above. But guys, let's get into this. Now, I've got to be honest, guys, over the past year of me doing YouTube and watching Formula 1 and commenting on it and making videos, I've actually avoided this conversation about Sebastian and avoiding the media narrative that seems to be following him of that he's done, he's over, he's just too bad for F1 anymore and he shouldn't be at Ferrari and he should be kicked out of the sport or anything like that. I have not followed that narrative. In fact, I've been at Seb's defense for such a long time, ever since this channel began. In fact, one of my first ever videos was defending him and saying that in 2018, I don't think it was just him that was the problem of why he was making those mistakes and why in the end they lost the championship. So I have been at Seb's defense for a long time because I do believe that he does have the talent in there, and it's just been a surprise to see how Lewis Hamilton has adapted to racing to this younger generation and how Sebastian just hasn't been able to do the same. Nevertheless though, guys, let's take a look back and let's start all the way back in 2016 in Mexico, where of course famously Sebastian Vettel went on a massive radio rant just hurling abuse at not only the race stewards but the race director Charlie Whiting. He did apologize to Charlie after the race, but it was just a horrible incident, and as Max Verstappen actually said after the race, it just kind of made Vettel look childish. I understand that Vettel was of course angry. He was angry because Verstappen, who cut the first corner after they were sort of battling very closely, did not receive a penalty at first, but yeah, Sebastian completely lost it, and then even when he was battling with Daniel Ricciardo, moved under the braking very aggressively, and then Sebastian actually then received the penalty, as well as Max in the end. So yeah, it was a horrible situation, and I kind of have to agree with Max Verstappen. Vettel then really did look childish, and that was kind of the beginning of the spiral for Sebastian Vettel. And then we get to the next incident in 2017 in Baku. Now, it started with a seemingly accidental incident between Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel under the safety car, where Sebastian said that Lewis brake checked him. Lewis Hamilton denied this, and it was just a bit of a nothing incident at first, until Sebastian Vettel he must have been so angry for some reason, and thinking that it really was on purpose, drove alongside Lewis Hamilton and basically bashed into the side of Lewis's car under the safety car. At the time, actually, it was kind of debated whether this was on purpose or accidental, but to me, it was 100% on purpose. You could see his wheel being turned and everything, and he was obviously penalized quite heavily, but in my opinion, it could have easily been a black flag or a disqualification, because that was a really stupid incident in my opinion, you know, trying to drive into the side of your competitor. So yeah, that really did kind of set a few alarm bells off for a few fans, like, what is going on with Vettel? Is he mentally right? And then of course we move on even later into 2017 and Singapore, a very vital incident where Sebastian Vettel crashed with Max Verstappen and his teammate Kimi Raikkonen on lap 1 before even the first corner, after Seb qualified on pole on a track where he needed to win. And the reason why this was so critical, especially in the 2017 title fight, is because Vettel was only 3 points behind Lewis Hamilton in the title at the time, which of course Lewis went on to win, and Ferrari just collapsed towards the end of that season. So that crash in Singapore was another vital mistake. Then we move on to 2018 and hoping for a new start for Vettel, maybe forgetting the woes of 2017. He really did start off the season really well, but then these mistakes kept creeping up again over and over and over. Starting at the 2018 French Grand Prix, where on lap 1, yet again, Sebastian broke too late and crashed into the side of Valtteri Bottas, sending both of them completely out of contention for the race win. Then we move on to the German Grand Prix in 2018, where another massive moment. This is really the race, and this is really the incident where most people thought that is it. There is something wrong with Vettel. He just has not got the right mindset. And of course, it is the famous incident where Sebastian Vettel crashed out in his home race whilst leading and kind of under no pressure really in the wet against Lewis Hamilton. Yet again, just like the previous year, he lost the title lead to Lewis Hamilton, and that is kind of how his season ended. Then we move on to the next incident, exactly almost a year ago at the 2018 Italian Grand Prix, where yet again, Sebastian Vettel made contact with Lewis Hamilton in wheel-to-wheel combat and spun in Ferrari's home race on a track where yet again, Seb really did look like he was on for the win, and he really did have the pace. Then we move on to the 2018 Japanese Grand Prix, where again, he collided with Max Verstappen, this time on lap 8 at Spoon Corner, and spun. Then we move on to the 2018 United States Grand Prix, where he collided with Max Verstappen's teammate at the time, Daniel Ricciardo, on the first lap, and yet again set himself into a spin. And these just go on and on and on. Then we get to this year actually, the 2019 Bahrain Grand Prix, again battling with Lewis Hamilton in wheel-to-wheel combat. Hamilton got just ahead of him a little bit, and Vettel spun up his rear tyres and spun again on lap 38. In the end, kind of losing the race for Ferrari after his teammate retired from the lead. There's no doubt in my mind that Vettel had the pace to win that race, and he threw it away. Next, we move on to 2019 and the Canadian Grand Prix. Again, under pressure from Lewis Hamilton, he made a mistake and ran across the grass, receiving a 5-second time penalty, and despite finishing first on the road, was demoted down to second in a very bizarre incident. Of course, there was a whole load of controversy about that, but yeah, let's just move on from Canada 2019. And then we move on to Silverstone this year. Again, battling with Max Verstappen in wheel-to-wheel combat, he went for an overly optimistic move against Verstappen, and Vettel crashed and spun yet again. And finally, we get to the latest incident in this long line of incidents, the 2019 Italian Grand Prix, where seemingly under no pressure at all and trying to chase down Valtteri Bottas, Vettel spun again at the Ascari chicane on lap 6. And breathe. I mean, wow, if you guys have been keeping up, or if you kept track of how many incidents I just talked about, that was 12 incidents in 3 years. I mean, the amount of points he must have lost through all of those incidents, I don't even want to get into the maths of that. Perhaps he could have been a 6-time world champion by now, we'll never know. But let's talk about 2019, because Sebastian still has not found the silver bullet to what's wrong. He has now been overtaken in the championship by his teammate, he has less podiums, he has less pole positions, and the only thing Seb does have on his side is history. He is a 4-time world champion, and that is the only thing that he has against his young teammate Charles Leclerc, and that's the worrying thing for Seb, because we all know that he is a quality driver. He does have talent, but something is not working. Seb clearly just does not feel comfortable with this car. One very big reason for that is because, of course, Ferrari did go down perhaps the wrong route of making it a bit of a low downforce car, and he is much more used to a higher downforce car. That's what made him excel in those Red Bulls, especially in 2011 and 2013, and also the way he manages his tyres. He's usually quite good on that. That was also one of the things that made him really great in 2011. His teammate Mark Webber couldn't quite manage to graft the brand new Pirellis in 2011, but Sebastian Vettel just absolutely got on top of them, and with that high downforce Red Bull as well, he just excelled and was in a class of his own. But Ferrari, they just don't have the car for that. But the problem is that as a 4-time world champion, you have to be able to adapt, or at least use the team around you to develop the car around yourself as the number one driver, which he was at the start of the season. I mean, there's going to be big questions whether he still is the number one now. I don't think he is. I think Charles Leclerc is paving his own way at Ferrari, and this is very worrying signs for Sebastian Vettel. So again, I kind of go back to my original question, is the Ferrari dream over for Seb? Well, of course it's not, you know, there's still a chance that he could come back, and he needs to do something drastic to change himself, because this isn't just a driving thing. I think this is a mental thing. Now, we know that Seb doesn't really do social media. He is such a nice guy though. I mean, even in the Italian Grand Prix where he knocked out Lance Stroll and where he came back onto the track in a dangerous way, he still has that courage to go up to him and just say sorry, explain how it is, and have that conversation. And then even after such a difficult race, he still does go and motivate the team. He goes to congratulate Charles Leclerc, but you could see he was really down, and I've never seen Seb that down. But the Italian Grand Prix hurt him a lot. But what does he need to do? Now, there's been various suggestions. I've read an article that apparently he could take a sabbatical in 2020 and come back for 2021. But I don't really see that as a viable option, because these days you need to have the sharpness, you need to be on track with these young guys to keep up with them. And not only that, but at the rate of how quickly Formula 1 and the driver lineups are changing 1 year out, and he might come back and not have a Ferrari seat to go to. So it's, yeah, I don't think a sabbatical is the right option for him. Of course, the really big one is that some people are saying that he should leave Ferrari and perhaps retire or go to a different team. Now, in terms of the retirement front, I'm not sure, because I still think Sebastian has something to offer. He is still a quality driver. If it wasn't for that Canadian Grand Prix, and if it did go a little bit different, he would be a race winner in 2019. So I don't believe he should retire in 2019. I think he should keep going for another few years, because he still, in my opinion, has quite a bit to offer. But in terms of changing to another team, that is also a very difficult thing to do, because if you look at the teams that maybe be able to get him a race win in terms of Red Bull and Mercedes, obviously as the two big teams, they both have star drivers who have built incredible teams around them, and it's kind of hard to see Seb going back into that environment in terms of Red Bull, or going into a new environment like Mercedes and trying to do something for himself. So the only way I could see him moving teams is if there's a very big move out of that team. If Max Verstappen leaves Red Bull, perhaps if they want Sebastian back, but even that's a very long shot, because Red Bull really have been committed these past few years to using their junior drivers and promoting their junior drivers. And do they really want Seb back? I mean, of course, there is the nostalgia. He did win all those championships with them, and he does still have a very good relationship with them, but I just don't see that happening. Mercedes, on the other hand, the only way I see Sebastian Vettel moving to Mercedes is if Lewis Hamilton is no longer there. There is no way we'll ever see Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel in the same team, in my opinion, because you just can't have two alpha dogs. We've seen how that works out in the past couple of years, and it just does not go well. So yeah, that's the only way I can see that happening, is if perhaps there's maybe a switch of Hamilton going to Ferrari and then Seb going to Mercedes. But even then, does Hamilton really want to leave Mercedes and go to Ferrari, where Charles Leclerc is kind of building the team around him now? Yeah, Seb's options are fast closing, but I think his problems are not just in the team and the driver lineup and where he should be, but I think he's got bigger problems in terms of his mentality. Now, he's a very close person, so it's very hard to know what's going on inside his head, but honestly, I do think one option for him is that he needs to somehow go and see like a sports psychiatrist, or get someone to help him mentally to cope with the pressure. I mean, it's something that Nico Rosberg was very open about. He actually started to do meditation, and in 2016, that's actually what helped him win the title, because he was so mentally damaged by battling Hamilton in 2014 and 15 that he just needed that extra bit of help. And I honestly think it's something that Sebastian Vettel should think about. He needs something, or he needs someone to help him get his confidence back, get his mojo back, and go back to the Sebastian Vettel that is more confident at racing wheel to wheel, doesn't make as many mistakes, and just copes better with pressure. You know, mental health is obviously something that a lot of people don't talk about, don't want to talk about, but I think it's something that Sebastian Vettel really does need help with. He does have the talent. We saw this, of course, in Germany this year, going from 20th to 2nd, an incredible race. He can overtake, but it's just when he gets under pressure, when he goes to the big stages of Monza, where he's trying to get that first win of the season, but being chased down by Lewis Hamilton in wheel-to-wheel combat, that is where he crumbles, and that, in my opinion, is where he really does need help. So guys, do I think the Ferrari dream for Sebastian Vettel is over? Well, no. He's one of the best drivers on track, and also an incredible personality out of the car as well, but something is not right, something is not working. He is not able to keep up with the new generation. He's not able to adapt like Lewis Hamilton or even Fernando Alonso have in the past few years, and if he does not make any changes to himself anytime soon, I don't think we're going to see Sebastian Vettel in Formula 1 for very much longer, which is a shame, because in my opinion, he is still a legend of the sport and one of the best drivers ever. So guys, what do you think? Do you think the Ferrari dream for Sebastian Vettel is over, or is there something that he can change to make it better? Let me know in the comments below, guys, and don't forget, if you did enjoy this video, don't forget to drop a like, smash that subscribe button, and check out my social medias. Instagram and Twitter will be above. But guys, I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.